Our next presenter is CJ Yu. Is CJ around? Welcome on up to the platform up here. He is the VP of Brand Entertainment and Integrated Media at Carat. Is that correct?
That's mostly correct.
I never know. You do a lot of things, so welcome.
Thank you very much. First of all, big thank you to the guys over here at the conference. I think everyone here has been enjoying the weekend. It's been an amazing venue for everyone here, and I think we'll definitely be walking away here with a lot of great connections and people that we've met that I know will continue to foster relationships in the next few years. It's a quick note here. You may see this funny little logo on the side here called the Story Lab. Over at Aegis, we are actually very proud to announce that we've launched a new branded content agency called the Story Lab, which really is our way of saying that content has become extremely important for many of our clients. So much so that when I started at Carat 3 years ago, I was kind of brought in to be the bridge to production companies, brands, and being able to translate between the two worlds. And today, about 3 years later, we've been able to say that, hey, this is so important that we actually dedicated a breakout agency to create all these opportunities, which is an agency that I'm also in right now as well. Is there a clicker up here? Or, oh, this is it. Okay, great. So, today's conversation here, we only have about 15 minutes, so I'm going to be talking pretty fast in order to have time for comments and questions at the end here. They'll be discussing a little bit more about, what is branded content, where it comes from, and what it means for consumers, and then doing a little bit of a deeper dive into how that process works from a very tactical level. I know that many people here in the room are already doing great pieces of content. I think some people may want to do more, but don't know how to engage in it. Most brands have a media agency they can turn to, or a PR agency, and oftentimes we actually get calls from folks all over our agency partner world where they say, hey, you know what, we're working with you on this project. What can we do to do this for our other client? Can you help us with that? So it's definitely becoming more than a buzzword. And I think for me, at least our agency, we believe that branded content can really be defined as the 30-second spot on steroids. When you're looking at branded content, a qualifier for us is really to look at how we can use that content to actually drive a key messaging piece or reinforce a piece of the brand that you're not able to do so in your commercial. If you're able to achieve any of those goals, that means that this activation in front of you might be a great thing to consider. I'm going to kick this off with a quick little video that I think is a great example of the way that content works and how a brand can come to life through video in a very unique and engaging way.
Tonight, we have a product too important because tonight, it's Wheat Thins. Wheat Thins, crunch is calling. And the call is coming from inside your mouth. Get out of there. Now I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Steven, how important could Wheat Thins be? Yeah, I used to think that way too. Until I received this actual memo from Wheat Thins, detailing for my sponsorship purposes what the role of Wheat Thins is in our lives. And let me tell you something. You think you know Wheat Thins? You.
So there you go. So I had nothing to do with that campaign. That was run by Starcom, and I think they did a great job with it, right? This is an activation where you take a product where, for me as a consumer, I know nothing about Wheat Thins, then it's a very boring cracker to me, at least. No offense to people working on the account. There's name in the room here, but they did a great job of bringing it to life in a way that you didn't expect, that you haven't seen in a commercial. So, in essence, I think a key component to this is that we believe brand entertainment and branded content can help brands reach and deepen the relationships in a world where points of connection, engagement, and transaction are all converging around content being the key. In other words, brand entertainment can really be the epicenter of where your campaign emanates from, whether it's the PR, marketing, social, and digital. It can be a tenet of your whole campaign. And we believe that through this approach, this approach is actually really, really important if you're in a place to reinvent your brand. For example, what if there was a show like Entourage, you're in their first season, brand new, and you could build it from the ground up and match each one of the brands in your portfolio to the characteristics of your target consumer. And I borrowed from our Diageo clients' portfolio here of brands, and this is just an example, so they didn't do this, but if you could actually marry the nuances to each brand, with each brand in your portfolio, to a character in a show, that would be a great way for this to come to life. And a little bit about how that's done. I think from a brand perspective, you have to come out with, obviously, a foundation of where you begin, right? Because we all know that, unfortunately, working in branded content, it's often led by a committee decision versus any one person on the brand or agency side. And people often come to us to get help on, well, how do I sell this into my CMO? How do I sell this into my boss? How do I get people on the creative side or the other silos in my company to actually engage and want to champion this on? And we believe there's really three components to that. There's obviously adaptive storytelling, meaning that the story that you put your brands in have to be unique to each device and location, yet it's able to be fluid enough to be integrated. Because as you guys see here through consumer connections on the left, we have to make sure that this is personalized and targeted. And the big payoff here is obviously making sure that this content will actually stimulate a collaborative conversation. It can really serve as a great currency in social media. Using, in the digital space, commerce is only one click away, and I think with great content, it enables you to do that in a way that you may not be able to do so in your current communications. But in the end, of course, we're all marketers here, content must deliver ROI. And how often have you guys heard this? Don't give me a content strategy, tell me how content helps me achieve my business strategy. Because ultimately, we're not just making fun content for the sake of making fun content. What's the purpose and how do I sell this in? And I think with that, we're going to take another step back here. Obviously today, we live in a world where all of us are surrounded by many different devices, right? Very few people are watching the TV and watching one screen alone. They're usually using your tablet, your phone, or any other devices to actually amplify that viewing experience, which has made us into a connected people. As connected people, by nature now, we've actually become a very connected culture, which actually gives our brands and our clients a really unique opportunity for content producers and brands to marry together and really advance the relationship to the next level. For producers, though, I think many people forget that brand integration can also feel like a very complex and intangible area. The same way that I know for many marketers in the room here, the production process, the integration process may seem a little opaque in terms of perhaps mismanaged expectations in some cases, in other cases, just not knowing what you're actually paying for. For producers who want to integrate into brands, they also don't fully understand how to engage, who to call, where to talk to. And that was essentially why we have people like myself and different agencies. And I'm not saying that our agency is the only agency that's doing this. Obviously, every agency group, now most of them have a team that does this. But just a little bit more background here. I think this slide's a really great illustration of the way that content's really evolved over even the last 5 to 10 years. You have starting off with traditional advertising at the base, going into the next step up into product placement, and then integration, and then ultimately adaptive branded content, which you could describe as a webisode series or a custom created content series, whether it's on full-time and cable. Like our Smirnoff client has a show on VH1 called Master the Mix. It's launching this right now. And a quick plug, our Nat Geo show with General Motors is also launching next fall. And that's a show that these clients have actually taken on and produced from beginning to end. But obviously, high engagement, but it's also extremely hard to achieve that. You have to start small. Two things to remember here, that creation of content and distribution of content go hand in hand. And I cannot stress that enough. Obviously, all media starts with great content, but at the same time, a great media strategy can never compensate for average content. The science of great content really comes from 3 tenets here. That must be talked about, something that you want to share with your friends. Is it water cooler conversation the next day? Is this highly visible? Is there an audience here that's going to watch this content? Then number 3, is this content airing in the right context? Is it in the right time slot? Is it in the right audience? We have the right viewers there. And I'm going to show a couple clips here. The first one is one that some of you guys may have seen before from a show called 30 Rock that I think is a great example of the marriage of these 3 tenets. The second one is one that I think could have been done a little differently. And we'll just go ahead and run this.
I'm sorry, you're saying you want us to use the show to sell stuff?
Look, I know how this sounds.
No, come on, Jack, we're not doing that. We're not compromising the integrity of the show to sell.
Wow, this is Diet Snapple?
I know, it tastes just like regular Snapple, doesn't it?
You should try pomegranate. It's amazing.
I only date guys who drink Snapple.
Look, we all love Snapple. Lord knows I do, but focus here.
So that was a little tongue-in-cheek. It was a little sarcastic, but it fits in well with the tone of the show. And I think any viewer of the show knew what they were trying to do and what they had to do, but they did it in a way that didn't take away from the experience of a fun, engaging show. Here's another one that I would say, again, and then apologies, we work with this network and many of our clients, and they actually do great, amazing work. I think this is a specific example that didn't necessarily land the way that it probably should have.
Here. Got this for you at the market.
What is it?
It's new product for your skin. You wash your face with it in the morning, and not only does it get your skin clean, it gives you a burst of energy. So if your date doesn't go so well tonight, tomorrow morning you get up, you use this, and maybe you get enough energy to do something else, Grace. Something that's good for you, and maybe even something that's good for somebody else. Something, beautiful, instead of something slightly unorthodox.
Did you get one for yourself? Oh, wait. It's too late. You married the guy.
So I think some would probably say that the last one read a little bit like a commercial versus something that added to the show. And that's something that I think, has been, obviously, it's extremely hard to find that careful balance. And a common question we often get is, how do I avoid that second execution? How do I always make mine act like the first one that you guys saw? And just to give you a little background here, the old school way, or I'd say the old school way of working with content and producers really works like this. It's a game of telephone, right? You have your buyer, the planners, the media agency talking to network ad sales. Network ad sales talks to the creative executives. The creative executives talk to the producers, and then they have the TV show. So if I'm a brand in this category, I want to be in your show, it goes through at least 5 levels of conversation most of the time for that conversation to happen. And the way that the model is evolving into is that branded entertainment teams and content folks like myself are talking simultaneously to ad sales, network executives, producers, and writers and agents as well, because we believe that in order to get great content, the client and the brand have to sit as close to the creative as possible. And I'm saying that probably to the chagrin of any network ad sales people in the room here, because obviously there's a common process and a proper way for things to be done. But what we found is that for the clients that actually do push the envelopes, that are willing to raise their hand and say, hey, I want to be in something more engaging than an interstitial, this current model doesn't really work. So the model that I would say the industry's really started adopting is the way that we do it here. And I think the way that many brand entertainment teams, that many agencies do it, the way that many PR agencies do it, is through this 5-step process, which I'll go into great detail for. The first step being early engagement or activation with teeth. Once the client's goals are set, once the media strategy is written down, the brand entertainment teams are usually the ones that first go out in the front lines to enlist the help of creative partners, because nothing's done in a vacuum here. And if you want to be in a TV show, my philosophy is leave it to the TV producers to produce TV for you, right? So what we'll do usually is work closely with our planning teams to make sure there's enough dollars allocated and all the spots, T's are crossed, I's are dotted. And then we then are empowered to go out to the marketplace to look for activations that make sense for the client. The second step being live briefings. And it's funny because I didn't sync up with Mike before. I know he mentioned this in an earlier panel, but he's right. There are literally, this little photo over here is supposed to illustrate that, but these guys are getting dozens and dozens of RFPs a day. And I have, like everybody else in the room, have friends on the sales side as well. And there's not enough time to fill in a day to hear all the horror stories that they get. But what happens is you get watered down, because the more that the wheels are spun, the more that you're asking for things you don't know what you're asking for, you end up with the very boilerplate level opportunities. So what we do is we actually treat live briefings very seriously. We engage creative partners. We meet with them face to face. I myself am based out of Los Angeles, and as a strategic decision, we have actually based our Storylab agency out of LA as well for that reason, to be able to be closer to the creative community. Step 3 here is creative refinement. Obviously, no one hits a 10 out of 10 every single time. We're able to get as close as possible to it. And ultimately, when we find the creative partner, we want to make sure that we're moving in the right direction here. I'm going to move the last 2 points very quickly here, to leave some time for questions. Making sure that obviously whatever path you go down touches all mediums, right? Nothing should sit in one silo when you're trying to engage with the consumer that engages in all mediums, whether it's social, digital, gaming, mobile. We want to make sure that all the boxes are checked. 5th and final, execution. I think all too often I've encountered teams at various agencies who've actually created a deal, worked with the network, and then when it came time to actually execute, they said, wait, that's not what we asked for. Or the episode was shot, you come back and say, wait a second, that's not what we talked about. It's extremely important to have someone who knows what they're doing, whether it's from the brand side or the agency side, to make sure that they're on set, monitoring the execution, that the brand pieces are put in place. It's also important to make sure that there's measurements afterwards as well. You probably set your goals to begin the campaign to figure out what your goals were and where your benchmarks would be. Is it going to be driving sales? Is it going to be getting better brand breakthrough? Make sure that there's execution at the end that actually can monitor that and measure it and have it planned in place. So we just have 1 minute left with time for questions. Anybody here has any questions in the room? Happy to answer. Yes, right there. Oh, you probably need a microphone. Okay.
Without being too granular here, is there any kind of like minimum spend that you look at and you say, listen, unless you have this much, it's not going to happen?
It's a very good question. A lot of our clients, come to different categories. Not everybody's a GM, right? There's clients with different spending levels. If you have the spend to go into the network, there's 2 ways to do it. One is what I call the cover charge, which is the execution fee to get, it's the media spend to get into the gate, right? It's like almost like your ante at the poker table. If you can spend a certain amount, you are now allowed to engage in these conversations with certain types of opportunities. If you're not, and you're maybe not a national advertiser, it could work to your advantage, where they know that you're a small category or a small spender, they can maybe charge you, rather than spending a $300,000 for an integration fee, you may only be paying $10,000 or $50,000, or even better yet, if you have a product category that's of value, so I'll use like hotels as an example, right? Hotels don't advertise that much themselves, but they can provide a real value to reality shows and series that may need a trade out, where you can actually come into the back door by working with producers. But those conversations usually will not happen with the network, because once you speak to the network, they're going to want us for media money. And it's a catch-22. So it's a very nuanced way of doing things. But I can talk to you more about it later. We have 30 seconds left. And I think we're good. Okay, sure. Yeah, so feel free to email me if you have any questions. I mean, obviously I work at Carat, but we're always happy to be a sounding board for anyone in the industry that needs help in terms of any information. We do this for many of our clients within the agency, and I think this is only going to continue to grow. So thank you for your time today, and I hope you guys enjoy the rest of the show.